All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Now gone.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Oh. I wasn't listening to the narrator at all.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
I'm gonna do everything he says to do until and then
stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job.
Where are my legs?
Like this now, when for years it had never occurred to him. This question would not go unanswered for long.
I've seen a guy on Twitch named Waka.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
I'm gonna do it. Like I said, I'm gonna do everything that he wants me to do.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
It's the mind control. Why am I teabagging nothing? Just teabagging with darkness. Now what? Oh.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
This is getting real dark.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
Yo, what's wrong with you, Cole? Like,
No. He refused to believe it.
I
He
refuse.
couldn't accept it.
I can't
His own
accept it.
life in someone else's control? Never. It was
Never.
unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life.
Oh, like facility.
For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
There's a code? Don't shut on me. Okay. There we go. System power. I can't see anything. Yeah, I'm still teabagging.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty.
Yup.
Was it over?
I should have thought about this.
Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved.
Doesn't
Where
matter.
had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold?
Does it
But
matter?
as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing.
Real.
Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new
This
path
narrating is on
before
point.
him.
This narrating is on point.
This
I ain't
was
even gonna lie.
exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Is that the end? Oh, that's the end. I beat the game. I just eat your first trophy. Okay, now I'm back. So now I'm gonna do everything I'm not
All
gonna
of
do
his
it.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
Games and speedrunners.
Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow, yes, this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
How about I jump off of it?
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Nah. Hmm. Nah.
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death.
Yes.
Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
The end is never the end. Is never the end. Is never the end. Yeah. That was dumb.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley
Since
came
there
to a
was
set
nowhere
of two
else to
open
go,
doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting
probably
room, and Stanley knew it
I'm gonna go
perfectly
through that
well.
door.
Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
There's so many different endings.
The lounge was
that I
sublime,
can't
a work of
do
art. What but eager
in
to get
one
back to
day
business,
because of
Stanley took the first open door on his left.
So I'm gonna go on the left, actually.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight
I'm not
ahead to
gonna
the
go down
opposite
here.
door, and got back on track.
I'm gonna go where it said escape.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his
Is the road
boss's
gonna be the
office.
same?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he
Mad, that's your fault.
relaxed for a few moments with some calming
Wow.
new age music.
This is not cool. But this is a nice game. Through.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Genuinely, I don't care. I mean, I do. He's a nice guy. Narrator's a nice guy, but, you know, I don't care at this point. No, either.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
You sure about that? Yeah, you're just going to make me turn back. You just want
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Dog, look at this point. No, it's red. It's all good. Oh, he's right. This is my death. How did I not die?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was
Now it's a
obliterated
girl.
as
The
the
narrator
machine
is a girl.
crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
What the?
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Okay.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
So did I really beat the game? No, turn back on. Turn back on. Turn on. Where is my? So there's no like nothing to indicate what I'm looking at. There's nothing to indicate what I'm looking at right now. Office clock. It's just the museum freedom ending. Boss's office. The lounge. Underground. The underground part of the game.
Stanley stood on the roof.
Narration outtakes. Kevin Writing, the voice of the narrator, recorded dialogue for the entire game roughly 3 separate times
Stanley
over
stood
2
on the
years of
roof.
These are clips from early takes that were not used in the final game.
Now look closely, Stanley. See how it's impossible for the player to do anything in this room? Perfect example of poor level design, textbook mistake. It's the kind of thing you'd pick up on intuitively if you had even the most fundamental understanding of good and bad game design. But of course, you being you, you're probably Stanley.
That's nice. Is there really any end to this game? Stanley thought to himself. Wait a minute. No, no, no. No, 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 no! No! Monitor room. Countdown. So there's a countdown area. I just saw a light flash on it. Narrator emails. What would you do, Sam? In your room? That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. Okay, so Sam. Stanley's office. It's the elevators. Went from small desk to big desk. So I guess it really is no end, eh? Oh!
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
Bye-bye.
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another?
Uh-huh.
No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Turn off your PlayStation. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
Wait, so what if I actually turned off my PlayStation? what would have happened? Would that actually have been another ending? Would that actually been a cool Easter egg?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
Yeah, that's
Perhaps
it.
he had simply missed a memo.